Thank you so much for joining us on our Dating Chronicles, part of Can We Just Talk? So we're going to be talking with Jayana and Jonathan Joseph about building an empire. So thank you so much for being a part of it. And yeah, we just really hope that we can both get some gems from this, and that somebody somewhere will be touched by something that you've got to share. So Jay, do you want to start with a word of prayer for us?
Absolutely, let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the opportunity to come and talk about one of the most important things that you've put in our lives, which is relationships. Please bless us as we talk and allow not only us to be blessed, but anyone watching us to be blessed too, in Jesus' name.
Amen. 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 So yeah, guys, obviously we know you. So do you want to just introduce yourselves just a little bit, just to those who probably don't, though you're A-listers, you know, there might be someone who doesn't know you. So just tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Sure. My name is Jonathan Joseph. I am 25 years old. I attended school. I think you guys call it university. I attended school at Oakwood University. It's in Huntsville, Alabama, where I met this young lady here. And what else? I'm from New York. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, which is the greatest place ever. Yeah, that's all I got. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm Jayana Joseph now. I'm 26, from Wolverhampton, England. Also went to Oakwood University where we met. And I think Wolverhampton is the greatest place. Wolverhampton.
I was waiting for it, you know. I was waiting. For those that don't know, these two are cousins. So yeah.
Wolverhampton, where kings and queens are made.
Woo, exactly.
So guys, obviously you met at Oakwood. Jade, when you decided to go to Oakwood University, did you ever have that like feeling that, you know, this move was going to be your move to the States, and did you intend on coming back? Did you think that you were going to find love there? Like,
honestly, when I left, all I knew was that I had to come back with a degree. I didn't know the rest of it. All I knew was that I'm going here to get a degree, and that's what I have to do. Everything else was pretty much like, not that I didn't care, but I just wasn't bothered. Like, if it happened, it happened. If not, then it's fine. But even with my move and stuff like that, I had intended on going back to England when I was done. But just being in America, I just knew it was, I felt happy here. It just felt like, yeah, it just felt like the right fit for me. So yeah, it wasn't really anything planned, but I guess God planned it that way, so it's fine.
Okay. Jonathan, when you met Jayana, did you have any reservations about the fact that she was British?
No. Well, no. Not, I don't think I did when I met her. And that's a whole different story. But no reservations. I didn't really know much about people from the UK, or, you know, from England to be exact. I had no idea what to expect or what not to expect, really. At Oakwood, you find that there's a variety of people. And then, you know, I think I had maybe like one or two friends that were from the UK, but no, I had no reservations. So it was just like a breath of fresh air.
Did you think you were going to have to make loads of cups of tea?
Okay.
Did you think you were going to have to make loads of cups of tea?
Oh, I made so much tea. You guys have no idea. I have made so much tea in this house. You guys have no idea at all.
I mean, you've got to get your day going with a cuppa, innit?
Or go to sleep with a cup of tea or whatever.
Or in the day. There's no wrong time.
Whatever works for you. whatever works for you, man. Yeah. Do you guys drink tea? Do you guys drink a lot of tea?
I don't.
I do. And sometimes, yeah, but sometimes I feel conscious. Like, I feel like because Jonathan doesn't, Like sometimes I have to like keep a tally, and I think, oh, this is probably like too many now. So, like I try and like reduce it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm good.
You have to get him to tea, and it balances itself.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about like finding a life partner. So we touched on it a bit in our last episode, so our first episode. But I just wondered, like, how do we, like, realistically go about finding our life partner? Is it a case for you guys of, did you have your kind of your structure, your plan, your end goal for yourself as an individual before finding your other half? Or do you think it can happen the other way around, where you find someone and then you put something in place together?
That's a really good question.
How about it?
What are you thinking? I'm just saying, I think it's difficult for anyone to find a partner or be happy with a partner if they're concentrating so much on themselves. I think that's almost like how, if I'm thinking I need to finish this degree and then I've got to have this amount of money in the bank and I've got to have my car, and then I want to make sure I've got another house and money in this account and that, so I'm 100% comfortable. Because then how are you're not, because you're concentrating on that, there's no space for anybody else.
Yeah.
So I don't know, is that kind of a reason why a lot of people like looking for love but can't find it because they're spending so much time indulging themselves? Or I don't know, is it a good thing that you're like that? Because then maybe when you do have your partner, the growth will be even more. I don't know, it's a bit of a...
Yeah, I think that there has to be a balance, but not only does there have to be a balance, I think a lot of it depends on where you are in life. Now, for me and Jonathan, when we met, we were in uni. We didn't really have anything established outside of that. So for us, it's been easier to kind of grow together and to just kind of do things together. But I think if we'd met later in life, when, like even maybe now, it would be a similar thing, but in many ways it would be different because we'd probably both have our own structured paths already, and then it would more be about bringing those two separate paths together rather than how we did go about it, which was kind of like we were both figuring things out together, and it was easier to kind of fit into each other's worlds and into each other's plans because we were both figuring it out. Kind of addressing what you were initially saying though, Jonathan, I think sometimes people probably do become so self-absorbed that it becomes hard to let anybody in because you've built so much by yourself that you don't feel comfortable letting somebody in. It's like, well, I did all this. Yeah. You have to bring more to the table now. And some people don't have more to bring to the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it just depends.
I think that's a really good point as well about bringing to the table, because similar to your situation, we were in a similar space when we got together. So we did things and grew together, and we learned about a lot of things together, and you know, we built on stuff kind of simultaneously, as opposed to one of us being like already established, whatever established is, and the other person trying to fit into that. And I think actually the reality is not everyone has the luxury of meeting someone and you're both at the exact same place and you can learn and grow together. Some people meet a little bit later where, you know, I'll give you an example. I've got a friend who was kind of like single for a number of years, has her own house, has a career, has her own like routine in terms of like social life. She has a group of friends, and then this other person's come into that, and it's almost like, well, no, because this is how I do it.
Yeah.
like so I guess you'd have to try and find a balance. I think it's nice that you can grow with someone and work things out, because let's face it, we don't always have the answers. I mean, I'm 33 and I haven't got all the answers. I don't know when you have all the answers, but You know, you never do, in my opinion. So it's nice when you can find somebody and grow with them and just learn and go on a journey of learning. But I guess for some people, you have to find a way of being accepting to people coming in and challenging the way that you do things, which could be hard.
That can be harder.
But don't worry about it. I've got the answers. I've got you.
Okay. But you know, like, when you are so established already, it's just like you have to leave room. So if that is what you want a life partner, you do have to leave some kind of room to say, or even in the back of your mind, know that you have to be flexible coming up.
Yeah.
Because even if especially if you're a woman and you are the epitome of a successful, independent woman, that's you. You have to, like, in my mind at least, I believe it's very important for the man to lead. How will you do that if you're so used to being in the lead all the time? You have to, in the back of your mind, have a mindset of, okay, I'm happy to lead my life because it's me, but if Mr. Right comes along, how will that dynamic for myself change, where I'm kind of letting him, you know, I'm not always the one making decisions, although I might, you know, I'll definitely have a say and stuff like that. It's not dependent on me to lead, and I think that can be an interesting dynamic too.
Have you found that hard? Like, just touching on that a little bit, so like, I too share that same thought process of that. I do want him to lead and to lead our family. Have you ever had found it challenging in some circumstances where there's a situation where you probably know you could just get it done, or you feel like you know you could just make it happen, but then at the back of your mind you just know, like, hang on, let me just stop.
Hold on, this sounds like experience.
No, I'm just asking.
And before you answer that question, I want you to think really, really hard about.
Yeah. What I want the rest of the day to
what
go
you want
like.
the tone of the rest of the day. Just be careful.
I think in some areas, yes, but overall, no. Because I like when he's leading. To me, I'm like, okay, like, you can have anything for dinner. Like, keep leading like that. And I mean, what? You don't want to do any chores? You want me to clean the car? To me, it's just like, yeah, like that feels right. I don't feel as though that's my job. I don't feel as though that's my role. So for me, when I see Jonathan leading and stuff, it's like, I can definitely get behind that.
And I think for me, I agree. I think in the general sense of it, I think maybe a man should be able to lead. But I think also that some people have things that they're better than other people. You know, if there's something where I need to draft something up and I need a blueprint of something for, you know, XYZ project, and I need to go ahead and get that done, I might tend to rely on Jayana's expertise, and I might tend to rely on her to lead more, because I believe that when it comes to blueprints, when it comes to setting something up, when it comes to planning something, she's gonna be better than I will. So I think we were having a conversation with somebody yesterday. I know when to play my role, and I think sometimes it's good in a relationship to kind of know I'm not really the strongest here, you know? And it's not really an insecurity. It's just I'm not the strongest in the kitchen, you know? I'm really not saying that I can't learn, right? You know, not saying that I don't want to learn, but she's a lot better than I am in it, you know? And if there's a group of people and they want to eat and everything like that, and we're inviting friends over and everything like that, I'm not going to volunteer my services just because I want to lead, you know what I mean? Or just because I need to be macho man or whatever. No, I think it's important that you know what you're good at, you know what your role is in the relationship, to be able to sometimes say, let me back off and let her go ahead and take. Because too much leading is a bad thing. Too much of anything really is a bad thing. But too much leading can be can facilitate something negative to the relationship. So I think you just got to kind of find a balance, you know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, because it almost becomes like a dictatorship if you're the one always saying what's going to happen. Go on.
Yeah, exactly. How's that been for you guys? And I guess because you've been married now 9 years, we've only been married for like just
close to a year now.
Yeah, about 10 months.
Yeah, close to a year.
How have you guys found that dynamic, not even just in the beginning of your relationship, but all the way through now to 9 years in?
I think it's the same thing that Jonathan's saying, that you know your strengths and your weaknesses. So you know your place, basically. So you kind of have to take guidance from each other. And you almost know when you need to lead, or the other person needs to take a back step and just allow the process to happen. It just comes from that growing, and it takes ages for you to understand what each other's strengths and each other's weaknesses are.
It does take a while. At least it did for us anyway. Yeah. I'd say like my spin on it would be, I found it harder in the beginning because although I wasn't older, like we were 20. I was 20. But
he's a big man.
I just felt like, even though I was 20, I took a pause before going to uni/school. So I was working. So, you know, I was working, I had my car, I was still at home, but I kind of had my structure. And if I needed something doing, I'd just get it done. And to be with someone, then I was like having to like second guess almost, is this something I should do? Should I ask him about this first? And then when we got married, at that stage, it wasn't too much of a thing because we were only dating. But then when we got married in those first few years, I did find it really hard. I almost felt like the way to go about it was to just crack on and get things done. Not necessarily and just not even giving it a second thought. And then I thought, no, hang on a minute. Maybe we need to share the load. We do this together. It's not just Cherie run full steam ahead. So yeah, I started to be more conscious about things like that. And actually, once I started to, like you say, subconsciously identify what I was better at and what he was better at, just made things so much easier to just take the load off myself, because I think we can get into that situation where you just try and do everything. But why when there's two of you and there's two capable people? So actually now I'm quite happy to just offload and say, hey babe, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you? So now he calls himself the can you guy, because that's, I'm quite happy to just let him do it all.
I think it's nice as well knowing that your husband, your wife, you can rely on them for things. You're not just, like you were saying, just taking the whole load on your own shoulders. Like, that is tiring, and you will get tired in your relationship. Things will burn out so fast because one person will feel like they're carrying the load of things. So
I guess in terms of like dating and talking about like sharing the load, and one of the things that we've kind of bounced around the group before is this idea of kind of building together. And I know we touched on it a little bit earlier, like you were both in uni school together. So you were at a similar stage. I guess what I'm thinking is like, how does that work when you're dating? How do you go about sharing the load, or identifying strengths and weaknesses, and knowing when to allow someone to make a decision, or when to just follow someone else's lead? Like, how do you do that in the dating stages? Because that's a lot easier once you're married.
Yeah.
Or do you go through that during the dating stage?
I think an example is like proposals, because we've had like questions come in saying like, is it okay for me to give a deadline for a proposal? Or you know what I mean? Like that's an example, because you're not allowing that person to make that decision or for them to do it. You're saying like you have to do it on this at this
point.
Yeah. Like, so that's not really.
I think for me personally, one of the biggest things that I had to establish in our relationship when we were dating, and not even just for Jonathan, but for myself, was boundaries. I had to establish, even with the whole proposal thing, like for me, I'll be very honest. I said to Jonathan pretty early on, I don't plan to be in this relationship longer than 4 years without us moving to the next step, because in my mind, you know, and just the person I am, I like to make plans, 10-year, 5-year, 1-year plans. That's me. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I know in my life in 5 years' time, I want to be here, here, and here. And if it takes you longer than that to figure out that you want to be with me on that level, then I'm sorry, but I mean, in my eyes, you should know.
I think 4 years is enough time.
Yeah.
You want to be married to me. So for me, that wasn't necessarily like a thing of, you know, me just saying this because I wanted to throw an ultimatum out there. At that time, we weren't married. At that time, our lives weren't, you know, bonded together. So in my mind, I'm thinking, as much as I'm happy with him and as much as I want to be with him, I have to think about my life as a whole. I have to think about my life, whether it proceeds with or without him. I'd prefer it to be with, but at the same time, I have to set boundaries in place just to kind of keep the relationship healthy, to make expectations clear, to make just no gray area. You know, if you're gonna pick me up for something, I prefer you to come to the door. If we're gonna be in and out of doors, I prefer you to hold my door for me. And it's just kind of like setting a standard of, this is how I would like to be treated by you. And this is kind of like, this is what I would like out of this relationship. And you can either, the other person can either agree and stay, disagree and leave. And there you've already avoided conflicts that might have come up later. And it's like, well, you didn't tell me, and oh, well, I didn't know I had to make a decision like that. No problem. Here's the boundaries. It's all out in the open. But do you know what I mean? It wasn't.
I think that's really important what you've just said. Like, this is what I expect, and you can stay and we can work to this standard. If not, you can leave. Like, that part is key, because I think some people make that mistake of, if not, okay. But then you just end up in a situation where you're unhappy, it's unhealthy, you know.
And it's not really okay.
And it's not, yeah, it's not okay.
It's not. I don't know what, if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, I think if you don't put out there your boundaries, if you don't put out there what's important to you, or if you don't discuss forms of disrespect that, you know, with us, there were a lot of cultural differences. And of course, I mean, I'm from Brooklyn, New York. She's from Wolverhampton, UK, you know, England. It's
two different worlds.
Two different worlds. And I think we were forced to learn each other. If it was going to work, we were forced to find out. So she mentioned the thing about the door. I mean, our first date, I remember we were going out, you know, I made a suggestion to go out. She agreed. And I drove to her house to pick her up, and I sent a text out. And I said, hey, I'm outside. And she said, aren't you going to come to the door? She's not playing. She really said, she's not playing about that. She said, aren't you going to come to the door? And I'm, you know, in my mind, I've never gone to any door to pick up. So it might be like a British thing. It might just be a you thing. I'm not really sure what it was. But at that point, I had a decision to make. It was okay. I'm gonna respect what it is that she's saying, or
you don't go on the date,
or I just drive away. And I don't think I was willing to drive away. So of course I went to the door and walked her down, and I was going to my side of the door, and she said, "Aren't you gonna get the door?" So very early on.
Okay.
Hey!
Yes. I think about it.
Yeah, very early on, she established who she wanted to, or how she wanted to be treated in the relationship. And if I wasn't rocking with it, then of course I could have just said, after that first day, I could have just said, this isn't for me. And for some people, it's just, stuff like that doesn't work. For some people, the boundaries that you're setting just won't work for them. And that's okay. But for somebody else, it might work for them. You know what I mean? So it's important to be able to say, this is who I am, deal with it or not, but this is who I am. So.
And even vice versa as well. With Jonathan being a musician, this is something I had to learn. A big boundary for him was that he needed time to practice. For me, big quality time person. So even when he'd be practicing, oh, hi, like, what you doing? Like, hey, calling, like, what you doing? Oh, you're still practicing? Okay. No, you can't do that. That's important to him. So if he needs that time to do that, I have to give him that time. It's not unreasonable. And then I think as well, you want someone that has goals. Their whole lives aren't just wrapped around you. They have other things that they put their time into. Because we're going to sit down and talk about the same thing all day, over and over again. Like that's boring.
It's funny you say that, because I don't think the person that has mentioned this thought it through to that extent. But I've heard that, I want someone that doesn't play games in terms of computer games. I don't really want someone that plays a sport. I don't really want someone that, and there was just this list of all these hobbies. And I sat there and I thought, what do you want to do? And it was like, because if they've got all of those distractions, where's the time for me? And I just thought, oh, that's interesting, because I think that would just drive me mad personally. Yeah, because you are literally just going to be
in each other's pockets constantly.
But then how are you not going to be arguing in that situation?
Even what you're describing, it's making my head
it's just too much.
It's too much, because like you're saying, what do you do?
People need time away from each other. People need time to get rejuvenated again. As much as I love Jayana, and as much as I think she loves me, she loves me. There are times in this house where we're just on two opposite sides of the house, and it'll be hours like that. Because sometimes, of course, I'm a musician, so I practice, of course. But even when I'm not practicing, sometimes you just need time, distance away from that person to be able to recharge and to be able to not deal with that person again, but to be able to put your best self forward again.
Have something to even give them.
Have something to say, have something to, there's a lot of things that we do with our days. And, at the end of the day, you kind of want to know, hey, what did you do today? And the answer is, well, I guess we hung out all day long. And that's an issue. You know what I mean?
It's like we can't do that again tomorrow. You got to change up tomorrow.
Yeah, it's an issue. So, people. I personally think I'm an advocate for take your time. I'm an advocate for absence makes the heart grow fonder. I'm an advocate for just recharging, taking personal time, and just catching your breath, or just having a hobby, or just having something to do with your life. Because at the end of the day, we're both individuals who have come together and joined together as a covenant, but we're both individuals. We both have our own lives. We both have things we were doing before we met each other. We both have goals and aspirations, things that we want to do in the next 5-10 years, things that take work from an individual standpoint, and if somebody's in your space bothering you or bugging you about all of that while you want to do that, that person might not be best for you. You know, that person might, if that person is not allowing you to complete goals that you had even before you met them, or to complete goals that they just woke up one morning and they said they wanted to do, and if they're not adding to that, if they're not fueling that, supporting that, pushing that forward, pushing you forward, you might need to check out what's going on with that person, or check out what's going on with your relationship.
Yeah. And how was that for you guys as well, especially now with having 2 kids? Have you found like that's changed some, or how have you felt that's gone for you guys? Yeah.
I think it's exactly the same. Just that you've got to probably work a little bit harder.
Your time management needs
got to be better because we met each other studying, and we're still studying now. We both decided to have career changes, and doing that with children, obviously much harder than doing it when you start in university. But you still got to do it. You just got to be able to manage your time. And what Jonathan's saying, you got to push each other, because there's times when I know that I like doing the whole paramedic thing. I gave up loads of times. I thought, sack it, I'm giving up, forget this. And then Sri had to push me to want to go get out of the house, to want to get in the car, to want to drive and go and do and get the goal, the end goal. Mm-hmm. So it is exactly that. Obviously, you are gonna have times where both of you are just like, you know, forget this. Let's just sack it completely off. But I don't know. There's always one of you inside there that's gonna be like, no, come on.
I think
let's look at it this way.
The way God makes it work in our situation, and I'm sure it's consistent with others, you have different tolerance levels, you have different peaks. So like what Jonathan's saying, we might both be arriving at a point where it's getting like stressful, and you know, we're going to make a decision and emotions are running high. One of us is always a little bit more on the reasonable side than the other. We never both arrive at a situation and we both just think, forget it, and throw in the towel. There's always one of us who still has that little bit more to give. Yeah. And I think that's just the beauty of God, because it's happened when he's just like, okay, forget this, I can't do it, it's not working, you know, like, I'll just try something else. But at that point, I might have had more to give to enable to support him. Yeah. But there's definitely been times where it's the other way around as well, where I just think there is no way out of a situation and I just can't do it. And he has that little bit more. And I think that's what, it's not something we do through choice or on our own. We've just kind of committed ourselves to doing things the right way through prayer and just asking God to lead us in things, that when we do get to a situation, he's always given one of us more. Yeah. Because you need it. There's no way you could both be kind of firing or like operating at the same level consistently, because a lot of things just wouldn't get done. Yeah. No. And especially with children, like I think Jonathan, you touched on it earlier, you need like a reset time to be able to put your best self forward. And that has never been more true than when you're a parent, because I'm telling you, when 7:30 comes, I'm signing off. Because I'm done. I'm done. Unless you are sick or you really need me or there has been an absolute catastrophe, I'm finished.
Don't look for me.
I can't do it. And it's like, it's crazy, because I get to that point and I'm like, I'm tired, I'm stressed, and I'm like, stop calling me. I just need you to go to bed. And then they go to bed, and about 2 hours into them sleeping, I'm looking at them like, oh, you're so beautiful. It's like, well, 2 hours ago, you feel like that. So.
You're so beautiful, but let me say that quietly, because if you wake up,
don't want to wake up. Please don't wake up. Please don't wake up.
That's the thing. It's like, you just need that moment. Yeah. And someone said to me when I was having my first, when we were having Caleb, like, when they're sleeping, that's God's time for you to, that's your battery recharge. That's when you plug your phone in at night. Their sleeping time is you being recharged. And I was just like, oh, what does that mean? And I totally get it. Totally get it. It's like, you just need to be able to reset all your thoughts, come back down to earth, all the emotions are like gone, and you're just able to be the best mom, the best wife, the best husband that you can be after just having that moment away.
Yeah, and it's important to put. I mean, I think people have this idea sometimes that in a relationship, it's not important to put your best foot forward. I don't believe that. I believe at all times, and of course, things get a little bit weird sometimes. And of course, things can kind of get crazy sometimes. But I believe that in a relationship, it's important to go ahead and put your best foot forward sometimes, or all the time. I think it's important that if Jayana met me and I was charismatic and I was funny and I was whatever traits that she thought of me when she first met me, it's important that I'm able to put that foot forward every time she speaks to me. Every time she speaks, so she can be reminded that, hey, this is who I am. This is who I am. And sometimes when your battery is low, it's hard to present somebody with that. Like, have you ever been hungry before and you're trying to deal with each other, and it's like the conversation that you're trying to have right now, it's not happening at all. That's exactly how I feel about a dead battery. If you're what's the word I'm looking for? It's slipping my mind right now. But if you're depleted, if you have nothing else to offer as a person, because all day long you've been offering your best foot forward to someone all day long, every single day, and you've never had time to recharge and kind of gather yourself again and kind of center yourself again, it's going to pose problems, I believe, in the relationship.
And I think even going off that, I hear a lot people saying, oh, well, the person I'm married to now isn't the person I fell in love with or what have you. For me, what makes me wake up every day and be excited that Jonathan is right there next to me, and even if we don't have anything special planned, I'm just so excited to start the day, because I think about when we were first, even before we were really dating, when I really figured out that I liked him, and he would text me and I'd be like, oh, Jonathan text me. Oh, he said he wants, can we go for a walk, or let's go grab some food. It's that excited feeling, because the person that you're learning, you like them so much that you want to be around them, and vice versa. If if Jonathan feels the same way about me, it's not fair for me, just because we're married now, we see each other every day. Why should I be less of a person than he fell in love with? Why should I be any different? If that's me, if that's my character, that's my personality, it's not right that I give him a lesser version of myself. And even talking about the whole recharging thing, I feel like everything we do in life, relationships, God has already somewhere put a blueprint of that out for us. And to me, that's the Sabbath. He wants us to spend that time to recharge, not just to spend that time with him, but when we're going back out into daily life, we were able to just kind of have that rest period, so we can even handle the rest of life. And something we've recently kind of gotten into is really understanding the temperament, the personality, the introvert, extrovert of the person you're with. Because even for us, I might need a bit more downtime than Jonathan, because of my personality, it takes more for me to be around people than maybe Jonathan. So even considering that, it goes further than just with us here. We can then, if say for in a public setting, even though that hasn't been for a long time because of COVID and stuff, he knows me, he knows my temperament. He's seen me up, he's seen me down, he's seen me recharging, he's seen me battery empty. And he can look at me and say, all right, I've got to get her out of there. Her battery's empty.
Yeah.
And vice versa. It's kind of like, I can see him and I can say, let me give him another 10 minutes because he's happy around his friends right now, and you know, let's just give him that. And I think that's a big part of being able to be happy with someone, to live with someone, is just understanding them, understanding the time they need to take away, and not taking it personally, and just understanding them and knowing what they need.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a big thing in terms of relationship and being able to grow together, is that understanding when the person's finished.
Yeah.
And like you say, not to be offended by it, because in that time you may not pick up on it, and that person might snap at you, or they might just get frustrated with something, and then you then can identify, hold on a second, something's not wrong here. If you're feeling a bit stressed, you're feeling a bit too tired, go and sit down, I'll do it, or let's go and sit and talk about it, or something simple as, listen, we're all hungry in the house. let's order some food.
We need to eat.
Nobody wants to cook. Nobody wants to do anything. And identifying the other person's had enough. You look at that. You look at each other vice versa and realise, you know what, they're not enough. And then you just try and put things in place. So that's that in terms of relationship. I think that's really important. Understanding each other. I think if you watched our first episode, we talked about love languages.
Yeah.
We touched a bit on stuff like that. Love languages, I think, so like something new that I learned from doing that episode and stuff, and got quite some good things. There's another thing I wanted to say, but I can't remember.
While you're thinking, one of the what Jay was saying about not taking offence, like in a relationship, I feel like that is one of the most important things. You can't be so in your feelings that absolutely everything affects you negatively. You just can't. Like, you really can't, because how are you going to learn? How are you going to grow? And how are you going to, like, develop and understand the other person if you're just constantly in your feelings, getting upset at every little thing? Like, I feel like if that's the type of person you are, you're not ready to be in a relationship. Like, maybe you're best on your own, figuring yourself out for a bit. But yeah, like, we definitely had to, we're very similar, but we're also very different. And I'm not good at, like, I get to a level where I've just had enough and I just can't be bothered and I just don't want to do anymore. And Jonathan had to identify that and think, okay, she's getting to that point. Because if I get to that point, it might come across to other people like she's rude or she's this or she's that, but I'm just tired and I'm done. So it's important for him to be able to see that, so he can say, like, oh, okay, should we start getting ready to go now? Like, and I think once you did figure that out, that helped a lot of situations. Like, just being able to say, okay, yeah, like, let's get ready.
Yeah, and I think it can be a maturity thing as well. You know, in life, you can't get upset with everything. You can't let everything kind of get under your skin, because you won't get anything done. You can't build relationships with people. And then I think, because I'm not even gonna lie, especially when we were first together, that was something I struggled with.
I struggled with it too.
Yeah, and he would say something, I'd be like, oh, I'd get vexed, like, why are you saying that? Like, but if I'm always like that, first of all, how can he feel comfortable saying anything to me? If he's supposed to be my other half, there are some things we have to tell each other that it's not always nice to hear, but who else is going to tell me?
Yeah.
And then it's like, how can, if I'm getting upset with everything, how can he really know when something is genuinely affecting me?
Yeah.
If I'm just this person that cries wolf, oh, why did you do that? Oh, I don't like that, this. How do you really know when I really don't like something, or when I really have a problem? If everything's a problem and I take offense to everything, how's he supposed to bring me around his friends, his family? Because at that point, you're unpredictable.
Or even how is he going to help you how is he going to help you fix it? If you're feeling like, how's he going to help you come out of that?
Through it, yeah. It's
not going to happen. And then, like you were saying, how do I as a person how do I grow? How do I leave room to be a better person?
Yeah.
Because if I'm taking offense to everything, that kind of says I'm already perfect. You don't have to tell me how to improve. You don't have to tell me I'm good. Like, don't say anything to me. I'm perfect. That's it.
Yeah.
And obviously we're not. Nobody is.
Something quick is you had to be able to learn, and it sounds weird because how do you learn it? But you had to be able to learn how to be real with yourself, and learn how to be real with your spouse or the person that you're dating or whatever. Being real in your vulnerabilities, but being real in your vulnerable moments, really, and being real when it just isn't working out for you, or like if I'm feeling some kind of way, I notice about myself that my tone changes, my heartbeat even increases some. And it can be anything. It could be a factor of sleep. It could be a factor of eating something simple as food. And food is such a blessing. Let's just touch that real quick.
I feel like food is your main thing here.
Food is so good. Especially her food is so good. So I'm so angry. Like, why have you not made food yet? Like, what are you doing? But yeah, like, you have to be able to, and I always say introspective. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but you have to be able to look inside yourself, and introspection, I guess. Yeah, be able to look inside yourself and say, I'm not in the mood. And sometimes you can communicate that. So before anything even happens, sometimes I try to go out my way to say to John, hey, I want you to know I have nothing against you right now. You haven't done anything to me. We're all good. I'm just not in the mood. I'm just not in a good mood. I'm just not in a good place right now. If you give me 30 minutes, if you give me an hour, I'll come back. And if you give me food, oh my gosh, food. But if you give me,
Jayana, go and cook this man some food, please.
Like, what are we doing?
Today.
What are we doing here? I don't know what we're still doing here, but no, I'm playing. If you give me some time, to be able to gather myself, gather my thoughts, be able to put my best foot forward again. I think putting your best foot forward is not something that happens once a day. It's not something that you just wake up in the day. You're like, today I'm going to be the best person I can for my kids. Today I'm going to be the best person I can for my wife, my husband. Today I'm going to be the best person I can for my friends. It's not one time. It goes on throughout the entire day, constantly reevaluating yourself. Where am I? Where am I? Where am I? Because all it takes is one wrong move, and all it takes is one wrong thought, and all it takes is that one wrong moment and somebody agitating you. And there's your big argument right there. There's your argument right there. There's your unsettling feeling right there. But if it's communicated, like, hey, if she doesn't know, if he doesn't know, like, this is how you're feeling right now, I personally think it's just best to put that out there. Like, hey, I'm not really where you think I am right now. Give me some time, and I'll be able to, you know what I mean?
I'll meet you back. I'll go around. Yeah.
So, like, what would you guys, if you're going to give someone advice who are in a relationship now, who would like looking forward to marriage, if you're going to give them one advice about their relationship, what would it be? I wouldn't even say relationship, just about their relationship in general, or yeah.
I think a lot of advice, or the number one piece of advice that people always gave me was to communicate. And I think until it made sense, it was like, why is everyone saying to communicate? Obviously we communicate, but it's not just about sitting there and talking. Communication is just so much more than having a conversation with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically, like Jonathan was saying, knowing when to communicate, knowing the best way to communicate with that person, and sometimes knowing when not to communicate, because sometimes it's just not the time. Like, if I know Jonathan has something that he has to do, it's time constraining, or he's in a time crunch.
Yeah.
I'm not about to say, oh yeah, I'm about to do the shopping now. Does this list look all right? Or I just want to make sure the list is okay. Or that's not the time for me to say, hey, I felt some kind of way about something that happened 30 minutes ago. It's not the time. Let him do what he has to do. And then probably by the time he comes back, it's like he didn't, that's another thing. I'll come back to that. He didn't mean it, or he just had to get this done. He wasn't trying to be rude. He wasn't ignoring you. And even sometimes when we're not used to seeing someone in a certain way, like Jonathan always has time for me. So if he doesn't, that's not something, again, I need to take offense to. It's just like he's doing that right now. And what I was going to say was, see, there's all this mind slipping going on. Oh, that's one thing that we've really paid attention to is we always give each other the benefit of the doubt. We never assume, before we assume that something's negative, we have to assume that it's positive. Because when you are not giving your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife the benefit of the doubt, you're painting them to be something, number one, that they're probably not. And number two, you know, what you put in is what you get out. So if I'm always thinking, oh, he didn't do this, he's not doing that, or he just doesn't care, whatever, most of the time that's not the case. It might have slipped his mind. Maybe he was doing something that was more pressing and he didn't get around to that yet. Yeah. And it's just, I know a big thing for me, giving him the benefit of the doubt has just changed my whole perspective on a lot of things. So before I get riled up and get upset and assume that he did something to get on my nerves, or just because he didn't care, or because it wasn't important to him, I'm already giving him space, not just for an explanation, but I'm giving him space to be human, to know that it's okay, and that I'm not just going to bite his head off all the time. Yeah. So the two main things I would say is the communication thing and giving your person, just erring on the side of caution and not assuming that it's negative.
Yeah, and I gotta piggyback on you real quick because I'm 100% agreeing with you 100%. There's a time, I always say there's a time, a place, and a how you do it. You know, every time is not the, you know, she spoke about the proposal thing where it's like, I'm not trying to be in a relationship for 4 years and I'm not get proposed to and not be engaged by the end of those 4 years. There was a time and a place and a how to actually say everything that she said. And, you know, she didn't come at me our first date and say, hey, I'm not trying to be here for 4 years, so, because that's going to make somebody run away. But you'd be surprised. There's so many people that like, I think that there is such thing as over communication, and that's probably a whole nother subject, but I believe that there's a time, a place, and a way to communicate things. If there's an argument that's going on and all of those things, or if there's a issue that's come up with you about that other person. For me, I try to give it a couple days and see if I still feel the same way. Yeah. You know, because over communication, sometimes saying something that probably doesn't even need to be said, and because sometimes things get exploded in your mind, I guess, and like you make things a lot bigger. I know I do make things a lot bigger than sometimes they actually are. So for me, I know I need to check myself. Is this how I actually feel? Or is this just how I feel right now? And a lot of times it's just how I feel right now, because 2 days will pass, 3 days will pass, and it's something I don't even think about again. And of course, if it is something that you continue to think about, or if it is something that's pressing to you, or if it is something that you believe that you need to communicate, then go for it and communicate that. But I believe that there's a time, a place, a how, or when that you can actually voice your opinion and actually get it off in the right way.
I agree with that.
Right.
Yeah, I'd say I very much agree with there's a time and a place. I also think it's important that you don't let things stew inside of you to the point where you go beyond being able to do it in the right way, because you can fall into that situation where you think, okay, I'm not going to say anything, benefit of the doubt, but then it's still there, it's still niggling away. And if you leave that for a period of time, you might find that you've gone past being able to sit down and reasonably discuss something with someone. So I think like my gem to share, if you like, would be just know and be aware of how something is making you feel, because you might be telling yourself that you're giving someone the benefit of the doubt, you're giving them space and you're waiting, but actually how it's making you feel might mean that the way you communicate and deal with it later on is not right. Because there's been countless times where people will just leave something and then, well, 6 months ago you did this and
just explodes.
and then it's just madness. So you know, you have to be conscious. You have to be make conscious decisions, and like, yes, give benefit of the doubt. Yes, try and, you know, suss out the right time to deal with something, and maybe have the conversation with a plate of macaroni and cheese on the side. I don't know, but you know.
True. And then, I mean, I agree, because, I mean, there's two extremes of it, too. Like you just said, 6 months, please do not ever bring up 6 months ago. I don't even remember what you're talking about. But there is, I don't know if you guys have ever encountered people like, maybe in a way like something's always an issue. Yeah. And I think I'm leaning more towards that way. Like there are some people like something's always an issue, or something like in a relationship is like always an issue. Like, hey, I didn't like the way you moved my toothbrush, or hey, I didn't like the way that you didn't do this, or you didn't do that, or you said you were going to do this, or I thought you should have just known that you were supposed to do that or something. That's when I believe like the extreme of like over communication. It's like, wow. It's like, how much? Because obviously if you're doing everything wrong, then you and that person just might, and I'm saying if it's something like, you know, that person's actually to do something, you're just ignoring them and you're not doing it, then, you know, that's a whole nother issue. But if it's like you're just living your natural life, you're living things, you're doing things how you've been accustomed to doing it, or you're doing things that you believe is right, and something's always an issue in a relationship, I believe that at that point there can be over communication. And I think at that point it can make someone maybe like run away from the problems, because nobody wants to nagging. Yeah, nobody wants to have problems with their person every day, every 2 hours of the day, and that nobody wants that.
No way.
Nobody wants that. So Jayana, she has a thing like where like every cabinet needs to be closed.
Yes.
You know, every cabinet in the kitchen or cupboard, every cupboard in the kitchen needs to be closed. Sometimes I'll leave a cupboard open. It's not that I'm meaning to annoy her, but it's sometimes I'll leave it open. Now she can go ahead and tell me about it one time, and if I choose to ignore it and she tells me about it again and again and again and again, cool thing. But if she tells me, hey, the cupboard's open, or hey, by the way, you forgot you didn't do this, or hey, by the way, you didn't do this, it comes off as like a nagging feeling, especially if it's things that you're not even meaning to do, or especially if it's things that, you know, over communication can kind of, it's like two extremes. It's like no communication, and it's like, man, like,
and
back off a little
bit. But I think even for us, we had to learn that balance.
There's a balance.
Because I remember there was a time when I would bring up, like, not even necessarily like light things. I'd bring up kind of heavy type things. You did this, we talk about it. Now in my mind, we address that. But obviously, I'm not the one that's being told off per se. Right. So then I'll come back later and I'm like, oh yeah, and this and this. And then later it's like this and this. By the end of the day, he feels like he's a horrible person. He feels like he's just making me miserable.
It's easy to feel like that.
When it's not, that's not the case. And even with, as you brought it up, leaving like cupboards open and things like that, I've had to learn to even adjust the way I'll bring it up. So maybe it'll be more jokey. Maybe it'll be like, I'll leave it and you can come and I'll say, oh, I left the cupboard open. don't realize, oh, I left it open, ha ha ha, no big deal type thing. Whereas I could say, I hate when you leave the cupboards open. Why are you always leaving it
Or
open?
you can just go over there and smash the cupboard.
Yeah, and it's
Close.
like,
Yeah.
what good is that?
Just smash it close. That'll make a point.
But you know what I mean? It's just, you know, it's things like that.
There's a time, a place, and when.
But you're absolutely right. I think you do have to get that
Perfect
balance right. And if another gem that I think was really good for me was I did not understand the psychology, the biology of the male brain. I didn't understand it. But once I did, like this is when I was in uni, one of my teachers gave me like a photocopies of a book that was basically talking about the man's mind. And to me, once I read that, I was like, wow, so he can't take this and this and this and this. And if I think he's acting like this because of this,
Probably
no,
not.
he's just a man. And
Probably just relaxing.
you know, this is kind of how, yeah, like it's not the same. Whereas, you know, but with women, you know, studies have shown we're a lot more emotional. We don't compartmentalize as much.
Good point.
So we often as women can look at men and be like, what's wrong with him? Like, oh, what's up? I don't know if I can have that around me. It's just like, no, we're two different people, two different beings, and God has made us in such a way where that's exactly how it's supposed to be. And when you do have that understanding, it can just make things totally different.
Yeah, no, that's a good point actually. I think one of my gem, I got two. Worst one would be compromise from the get-go.
That's good.
Because I always say you're two people coming from however many years of growing on your own.
Yeah.
20 years of growing on your own is a long time, and you've built yourself as how you feel like that you feel like that's how it should be. Everyone should be like that. Like for example, I love Haagen-Dazs cookies and cream, and I think everybody should love it from the get-go. Everyone should love it. So if someone says to me their favorite isn't Haagen-Dazs cookies and cream, I'm looking at them like, are you dumb? Like, how is it not your favorite? It is the one. Well, just using that as an example is like that's you've been doing things however you've wanted to do them for 20 years, and now you're introducing someone into your life. I think from the get-go, you know, if you want it to be serious, you want to get to that end goal. Let's say our end goal be marriage. Is that you have to compromise a lot. You have to compromise on your time. You have to compromise on the things that you like. So Sheree doesn't. Haagen-Dazs cookies and cream isn't Sheree's favorite. She likes a different ice cream. At the moment, it's that caramel chocolate brownie thing. So try some caramel chocolate brownie. Don't buy Haagen-Dazs. Just buy some chocolate caramel brownie and enjoy it together. Do you know what I mean? And it's the same with everything. Like you like certain films, don't watch these films. Watch those films. Watch what your partner wants, and just compromise. I think it's a big thing. The second one is just enjoying it, because I can look back at stories and things that me and Sheree did when we were we were just going out, and I just have to laugh. I think, like, what were we doing? Where were we going? Like, say that again.
Just having fun, not thinking.
Yeah. So literally, just have fun, enjoy it. Like, never feel like you don't want to do or you can't do. Just do everything. And someone told me a lot of times, if you get a chance to experience something, go and experience it. And I think that's an amazing thing to do in a relationship, because that's the process of you building your empire together. And that's a major thing. You two people coming together to build one thing, and it's always going to be easier and better, and more even better when you're having fun and you're doing it together and enjoying it. So I think those are my two gems: the fact you're enjoy it, and what was the other one? And compromise. Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously, guys, we've been talking for a long time now, so I'm sure we could go on for ages.
Just keep going.
But we obviously are gonna wrap it up. But thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Obviously interrupting your daily schedule. You've given us 45 minutes, an hour of your time.
Yeah.
Wow. Has been an hour.
And you gave us an hour of time on your anniversary.
Yeah, I know. Share our anniversary with you.
How many years has it been again?
9.
Yeah.
The big one next year. The big one. We want to do a nice holiday.
Yeah, that would be great.
Without the kids again.
That's a bad times.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah. Hopefully next year it's much better than we had this year.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you guys.
Thanks so much.
Really appreciate it. Drop some nice gems and a lot of things for even us to think about, and hopefully people who watch it can get something from it as well. But thank you guys loads.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Sure.
Bye.
All right. See you later. Bye.